Hi, I'm Mitch, and welcome to the Restoration Road. Today I have the rare opportunity to sit down with my dad and my brother. We sold out to eBay in 1999. My brother had left a couple years prior, and we all went in our separate directions in life, areas where we thought God was calling us. Today you're going to get to hear the directions that we chose and how God has led us down our own individual restoration roads. Well, Dad and Stuart, it's good to have both of you here today. And what I thought we would do today is talk about our lives post-Kruse International. I think it was the end of '97, Stuart, that you went on to do some different things. And then in 1999, we sold to eBay, and I went to get my master's and doctorate in theology, and we can talk about what happened after that later. Why don't you go first about your journey, because it's amazing where you are today.
Okay. Back when I was in high school, I went on a missions trip with our church youth group to South Dakota, and that's where I really had a, prior to that, I would have called myself a Christian, but I think it was on that trip where light bulbs went off of what it really means to live for Christ. And so that's where I had more of a radical change in my life. And not too long after that, I started having feelings of wanting to be in ministry, but we had the family business sitting there and kind of felt, I don't know if obligated is the right word, but kind of just felt like that's kind of what I was groomed for.
There was no other choice.
Yeah, there was no other choice. So, and I had other people asking me, have you ever thought about ministry? And in the back of my head, I thought, yes. Maybe someday, maybe as a second occupation somewhere down the line. So I went into the family business, and then, which I think was hindsight, I think it was really good because it exposed me to the world and our culture and the way different people live. And I think it's good for anybody before they go into ministry to work in a secular setting. So that you can relate to what the everyday person's going through.
Absolutely.
If you just come out of high school, go to seminary, then go into ministry, you miss that. And yes. I think that's a huge disservice to your congregation. No offense to anybody who's done that.
Right.
I'm just saying I just think it's very advantageous to be able to do that. So, and then also with Dad's training of how to be in front of a crowd, how to speak in front of people, that seasoned me as well in preaching then later. So in the late 90s, some things happened where I just thought, now might be a good time to pursue that. And so talked to you guys about it and got your blessing to move on with that, and took some classes at Taylor University in Fort Wayne. Then eventually ended up going to Huntington University, where I got my master's in pastoral ministries there. But in that process, when I was at Taylor, there was a professor there, and I asked him, how do you know if you have the call to ministry? And then also, I grew up in this church at County Line. I would love to be there. Obviously, there's no position for me there, but is it wrong for me to want to be there? Or am I putting God in a box? And he said, I think you've answered your own question. And so I talked to my wife, and we decided, well, if I feel God's calling me to be a pastor, then I need to be open to go anywhere. And what was interesting, as soon as I had that peace that I'll go wherever he wants me to go, a few months after that, our senior pastor at the time had some health issues and decided he needed to retire. And they knew I was pursuing ministry, so they asked if I would want to come on as the associate pastor at that point. So it was kind of neat how once I gave it up, God then gave me the desires of my heart. Ended up being at the church I grew up in at County Line, served there as associate pastor under Bob Herman for about 8 years or so. Then he had some health issues. And then they asked me if I would become the senior pastor, and I've been doing that for the last 4 years.
And it's amazing what's happened there. Our great-great-grandfather co-founded it 114 years ago, is that right?
1897.
So 116 years ago, is that right? Dad, do you remember that day? No. What do
I
you-
some days feel that old, but
What do
my
you remember
grandmother
about
told
that?
me a lot about it. It was her dad and her uncle, Eli and Dave Garrick, and then Noah Garrick was involved, and they lived there. And their hired man we used to walk back and forth, and he was going home one day.
That's the Bailey?
Ed Bailey.
Yeah, at Bailey, and he was walking from the one site down to the other one, which was about 3/4 of a mile. And he had a vision on this little hill that there ought to be a church there. So he told the Garrick brothers about it. He said, you know, I feel God told me that there needs to be a church there. And you people have the wherewithal, why don't you build one there? So after a little while, they built one called the Brush College Church of God out of Anderson, Indiana. And shortly thereafter, they got a guy by the name of Everett Hartoon to be the pastor there. I believe that's his name, Everett. And they helped underwrite his salary, and the church grew into a big church of like 60, 65 people.
I remember seeing pictures of 1940s when they had the whole church congregation out in front of the church building, and somebody's holding Dad as a baby. Remember that? It's probably Grandma Llewellyn, don't you think?
Could be. Well, anyways, then they got a new preacher in by the name of Bill Eddy, and that was about in probably 1950, and the church was about 85 or 90. And he built it up to 150, which was pretty good for a church out in the country with nobody there. And he went on to become one of the great ministers in the Church of God movement. He was really quite an individual. And then they went through several pastors, and it stayed at about 150 for a long time. Then when Stuart and his first cousin, Dane Kruse, and then his staff took over, just in 4 or 5 years, it's gone up to, last Sunday, there were 1,450 there.
Is that right?
Close.
Unbelievable.
And so they've added on 2 or 3 times. They've never quit building, and now they're building a big new sanctuary there that'll seat about 2,350. Or 1,350. So,
and what do you always tell him?
Well,
Who
it's
you
not
pointing
big
at?
enough.
It's not big enough.
That's right. I wanted it to be 2,500 because right now
I preached in a church like that. It's full. It's big on Sundays, and then everything else you do in it, it's like there's not very many people in it, even if you have like 600.
Well, it seats 1,350, right, the new one? And if you take what we have there now, you can't even get them all in for one service. So he's going to have 2 services. And
Is that what you're going to do?
he may end up going to 3, and I guess at 3 services he could have 4,000 people. So that might end up being what they do before they build again. Then they'll build one. Then they'll build one with 10,000 seats.
If I ever needed a PR agent, he'd be the guy.
He is. He is. He's probably the reason a lot of people come. Yeah. He's talking about it all the time.
Well, he asked me the other day, we're having our dedication service of the new sanctuary in August, and then we have our official invite Sunday where you invite friends and that kind of thing, September 8th. And Dad shot me a text and said, I'm inviting 100 people to the September 8th service, and we all want to sit together. And he started naming off celebrities he's going to invite. So, like I said, I mean, he's my biggest supporter.
It's just awesome.
Yeah.
How'd you think of that, Dad?
Well, I just thought it's a big movement for a small country church out in the middle of nowhere to have that big of a congregation, and I feel that a lot of people might enjoy seeing it. I'm sure that'll be a nice service. And the one thing about Stuart is he runs his services right on time, and he acts like he isn't. I mean, he's up there so relaxed and everything, but when the second hand hits the big hand, and that's 50 minutes, it's over.
Is that what it is, 50?
Right now.
You got your sermon like down to a certain time element. What is it?
22 minutes.
And every public speakers say that every minute over 20, you can deduct 2 or whatever on what people are going to remember and recall. How do you do that? How do you keep it at 22? What kind of outline do you use? How do you know that what the time's going to be?
I use a manuscript, so pretty much everything I say is in my notes.
So you know the number of words you can say.
That's just my style. It helps me, and I know it. A certain amount of words, that's about where I need to be. And so then it helps me keep my time where it needs to be. And
do you know how many words that is?
For me, it's in the 22 to 2,400 range.
Are you going to write a book?
No.
Stuart, you got all of this. Are you going to write a devotional?
No.
Stuart, you already got it. Have
The
you thought about
sermons, you
that?
mean?
All your sermons, if you got them word for word, are they online?
Yeah, they're online.
No, not the
Oh,
audio.
the manuscripts?
Yeah.
No.
Stewie, you ought to have an app. Dad, shouldn't he have an app?
Yes, sir.
Stu, you got to do something with that. That's huge.
One thing I saw one time, I went up and talked to him after a service, and there was a chart there with when you opened up in the choir, and he had it like every
Oh,
3
you
or
see
4
the
minutes.
service plan? Mhm.
He has it all the way down, and he acts so relaxed, but he's actually probably got butterflies in his stomach to make sure everybody does it right.
Is that true, Stewie?
Well, I have to give a lot of credit, too, to our worship arts pastor, Kevin McIntyre, because he also does a really good job in timing everything that happens prior to me getting up.
You don't get up there with 10 minutes or,
Right, yeah.
or
He's really-
35.
he's really become a master at that, too. That, and it's important to us because we have 4 services right now, and that's why we're at 45 to 50 minutes each service. And so it's really important for us to have to get done on time, because you have to get those people out and the next people in, because our services are 8, 9, 10, and 11. So it's just one or after another. So we really can't afford to go overtime.
I know you give God all the credit for the growth, but how would you articulate what he's prompted you to do or others to do to see this huge ripple effect of people coming?
I think, to me, I think most people, a lot of Christians maybe have a misunderstanding of what the church is or what it's supposed to do. And unfortunately, a lot of times we think the church is there to meet my needs, to meet the needs of my family, to be the way I want it to be, that kind of thing. And really, Christ designed the church to be outward focused, to be focused on how can we bring hope to the community, how can we bring hope to the world, hope to broken people. And so through that, I think what we've tried to do at County Line is create a culture that, yes, we meet the needs of our people and we take care of them and shepherd them and that kind of thing, but we continuously remind them that in God's eyes, it's not all about us. It's always about keeping our eye on the community, keeping our eye on other people, and reaching people for Christ, ministering to hurting people in our community, that kind of thing. And I think that has been a huge factor in what's happened at County Line, because the people have bought into that, and they're believing that. And so it's God using the people of County Line who have said, you know what, that is what the church is about. It's about being Christ outside the walls of the church. And when people have asked me from other churches, you know, what are you doing there? I've just simplified it to, I don't know, other than we're just trying to be Jesus to people. Mm-hmm. We just ask ourselves all the time, what would Jesus do here? What would Jesus do here? And that's the way we try to equip our people, is to ask that same question when they're out in their workplace, their neighborhoods, their schools. Just how can I be Jesus to people? And if you do that, the rest will take care of itself.
That's excellent.
I had a minister here in Auburn talk to me. He has a pretty good-sized church, about 300. He said, I've been at 300 for 10 years. And he said, Stuart took over out there and went from 400 to 1,400. He said, I don't understand what's going on out there. I've been trying to figure out. He said, I advertise all the time. I got people out laying brochures out all over. And he said he doesn't even advertise at all.
Not at all. It's
Doesn't
word of mouth.
advertise at all. It's all word of mouth and people. And he just doesn't understand that.
Well, I don't think a lot of people understand how County Line Church of God has been as much of part of our heritage as Kruse International or the auction business. It's interesting, isn't it? Those things were parallel in our lives,
right.
Our entire lives. It's interesting, and even before Dad's generation.
Yes, I often would think if that Ed Bailey could come and see what's there now. It's like God knew this area was going to grow, and
Sure.
He knew there was going to be a big need there, and He kept that church as sort of a local center point for a very, very small community. And as this community grew, I mean, back then Leo was 250 people, and now it's probably 10, 12,000. And it's, as this area grew, God had his church there where he wanted it. And then it's really interesting that, you know, the great grandson and nephew are the pastors there. They would absolutely couldn't believe that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think you can look at that original nucleus of family, when we were kids, and you can see how the relationships, the ripple effect of those, that's what's brought the people in. You know, a person gets saved or their life gets transformed, and then they invite their friends or their family, and then they invite their friends and their family when they're transformed. It's just amazing, isn't it?
And I think, too, I think Dad is, like I said, he's a good PR agent, and he's a proud dad. So gives me a lot of, or he's making me feel pretty good about what I've done. But I also think that I don't want to discount what pastors before me did, what people who have since passed, congregational members, did and what they contributed. And that's what, at our dedication service, we're going to recognize them, the pastors that came before, the congregations that came before, because at any point, you mentioned our church was founded in 1897. So a lot could have happened along there that could have killed the church. It could have died out a long time ago, but it didn't, because you had a core nucleus of people, or you had people that believed in Ed Bailey's vision that kept that going even through the ups and the downs that they had through all those years. And I also don't think we're the only good church in town. It's exciting for me. I've seen, as I drive around the community, a lot of churches are having building projects of different kinds.
They are.
And it's exciting for me as a pastor to see that not only is God working at County Line, but he's working at all these different churches. Something amazing's happening around our community. All the churches are involved in it, no matter what size they are. So it's just exciting to be on this side of things and to be watching what God's doing in and around our community, and where that's maybe headed, I don't know.
Another unusual thing is that the original families back when it was founded, their offsprings go there now. They all go there. They never left.
So how do you grow a church from about 27 to 1,450 or over 2,000 people call it home now? Just stay at it? 117 years?
I think what Dad,
or whatever it is.
Well, no, but I think what Dad just said is a huge key to what's happening at County Line, is that what kills churches is that core nucleus of families that say, this is our church, and you're going to do things the way we want you to do it. And if you don't, we're going to get rid of you and get someone else in here that will. Thankfully, at County Line, you have a core nucleus of families that have been there all those years that have held the church like this, that have said, this is God's church. That's the name of the church, Church of God. It's God's church, and we're not going to dictate what happens. You know, we're going to ask God to lead us to the right leader at the right time, and we're going to support him or her and see where God takes it. And I think that is one of the biggest keys to what's happened at County Line is, and like Dad said, that's very rare to have families who've stayed all through those years and never got mad and left.
Isn't that something?
They've been through the ups and the downs, and now things are going well, and they're excited. They're as excited as anybody.
Well, Dad, let's talk about what you've done. You've done so much since 1999. Where do you want to start? What do you want to pick out?
Well, I'm still alive.
That's the good thing.
That's the good thing. With all the airplane stuff I had, missing runways and engines on fire and all the crap I went through, I'm still alive. I think when I wake up in the morning, I thank the Lord I'm a winner. You know, I've had a good life, been all over the world and done a lot of things, and I lost lots of money. I made more money than most people would have thought about, and I've lost more than most people would dream about losing. And I've done it 2 or 3 times. But it's never been hard for me to make money. It was always hard for me to keep it. But we had a great time in establishing the Auburn event as one of the greatest car events in the world. And there's been celebrities and people from countries all over the world here. And the people that have it now, RM, Auctions America, they do a good job, and they're a good, clean, profitable company. And I think it'll be here for a long, long time. And we have this museum that is really nice in Auburn. We have a real nice World War II museum, and we have celebrity cars, a bat cave, the Batmobile, bat cycle, bat plane, bat boat. We got it all. kind of batty around here. But I've had a great life. If I died tomorrow, I couldn't say that I had a great life, because I have. I've done everything, been everywhere, and it's been really great. In fact, just last weekend, the Auburn Star did a supplement to their paper of the last 100 years here in Auburn, and they had me in there as one of the top 2 guys at Auburn. I felt kind of good.
Terrific.
Yeah.
How do you spend your days now?
Well, first thing I do is get up. And then I take my boy to school. I have a boy named Devin that's still at home. Adopted him from Russia. I take him to school, then I go get my wife's coffee and get me some coffee and get her donut, or not a donut, it's a roll, and muffin, I guess, and something else, I don't know. In fact, I just tell them it's Dean Kruse, I want my order, and they give me the same thing. So I don't even know what all it is. And then I come back and I drive in, I get the newspaper and come in, and my wife is still in bed usually, and I sit down and I read the Bible first, and then I read my newspapers, and I get done, then I'm either going to go work out, or if I don't feel good enough, I get ready and go to work. I work about 4 or 5 hours a day.
And do you spend most of your time at the museum working on those kinds of things?
Well, that's my job. My job is to keep this thing going, and it's pretty tough. I mean, we were in debt $3 million. I got it down now to $253,000, but it gets harder to raise all the time. So this is a great challenge. We have a hall that'll seat 3,000 people, and we have one that'll seat 2,000, 1,500, depending whether you have tables or not. And then we have another hall that'll seat about 250. Then we have a couple theater halls that seat about 100, 110. And then we have a couple little rooms where people that have 20 people could come. So we have one of the finest facilities, I think, in northern Indiana for people to come, because we have free parking. You don't have to fight any traffic. You get off of I-69 and you're here in 30 seconds. And we have plenty of parking for everybody, and it's a good place.
220,000 square feet. I think only the Smithsonian was bigger at the time it was built in museum.
Yeah, one of the largest museums in the world, really.
And it's amazing.
I know that every time we have to pay the heat bill or the cooling bill.
And aren't you full all the time with people running the facility on the weekends?
Sometimes it goes up and down depending on who I got on staff and how much work I have to do and how I feel. But yeah, if we get out and promote it, we can be full all the time.
Well, when I hear both of you talk, it makes me think about a story. You know, I went and got my master's and doctorate in theology. I volunteered at Black Hawk Ministries as a teaching pastor, and I felt God prompting me to write and to start this television program. And now it's on all over the world. And
how many books have you written? One. Well, you were trying to get.
Well, I have
Stuart.
12. I have.
Yeah, to write some more books,
That's
Mitch.
true.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
write
tell
some
you
more.
why. I got 12 or 13 that I have like enough put together that I could, but it's changing so fast, and I think I'm going to put it all either online or do a digital book for each one. And I'm writing a weekly devotional and things like that too. But how God and business come together is what's going through my mind. Do you remember when I got a call from a guy that said he was I think he referred to himself as the Monsignor or maybe the Archbishop of Buffalo, New York. And he starts telling me about he was friends with the Pope before he was the Pope, and now he wants to sell his car, and he thought it'd be good to sell it through us. And I'm thinking, the Pope Mobile, it's bulletproof, it'll bring $1 million. And so as he keeps talking to me, he said it's in storage. He's been in storage since he's become Pope because he doesn't drive anymore. And then I'm thinking, I'm confused now. And then finally, he's talking a lot, and I finally stopped. I said, what kind of car is it? He said, it's a Ford Escort. And when he told me what year it was, I said, I think
This
it was
is Pope John Paul II.
Yes. And I said, oh my goodness. He said, what? I go, the car's probably worth $500. I said, but I have an idea. He goes, what? I said, if I could auction that car and it would include an audience with the Pope, I think it would be special. He goes, no problem. I go, you can make that happen? He goes, yes. I said, do you need to check with anybody? No. I said, will you send me pictures and stuff? He goes, yes. We hang up, and I don't know if the call was legit or not, you know? But then I get in the mail, I get a picture of the escort, I get the Pope picture with it, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I'm still not sure. We're still promoting it. I'm thinking, is this going to be some kind of hoax? He comes. He's got his priestly garb on. He represents the car. And we auctioned the audience with the Pope. And how much did it bring? 110,000 or something
I thought
like
it was 700,000.
The first time. The first time I think it was 110,000. And there's a whole nother story of how the bidding went and all that kind of thing. Well, the Monsignor gets up and he grabs the microphone, and I'm talking to somebody. And I think, Dad, maybe you had auctioned it. And Dad said, what are you going to do? And I said, what do you mean? What did he say? He wants to know if you're going to throw in the buyer premium and the commission as well, you know, as a donation to the church. That's when I knew he was legit. And I said yes, and we did. And what an experience. It was just amazing. So
we can't probably say exactly what the shirt said of the guy who bought the, remember that?
Yes, I do. That's why I said it's a whole other story.
We had to change shirts. Yeah. And then he got in financial trouble a few years later, and that's when it brought 750,000.
Yeah, you sold it again.
Yeah, we knew a little more how to promote it.
And he got his audience with the Pope.
Yes, he did.
It was
he
amazing.
Had pictures of it in his scrapbook. It was quite
amazing.
Thing.
And so I remember we were filming the infomercial, and so I had the Monsignor say that when the Pope chose to sell his car, he chose Kruse International. Yeah, it was awesome. That was so much fun. Guys, thank you for being here today. It's such a pleasure. I love you both.
Thank you. We love you too.
Thanks. Wow. You can see why I am the way I am. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Restoration Road. I pray that just something that we said today can help you apply God's heart to your everyday life as you walk Restoration Road. You know, I'm still amazed at how God used us to capture my story of restoration and yet teach the Bible through this book, Restoration Road. Not a week goes by that we don't hear from someone that this book has impacted in an eternal way. I encourage you to go online to therestorationroad.com and pick up your copy today and begin your journey of restoration.